Well, hello again. Pastor Ray Barnett here, and I'm glad that you can join with me on God's answers for anxiety and depression. I want to wish everybody a good morning, good afternoon, or a good evening, depending on what time you're watching the broadcast. Well, one more time, at the expense of being excessively redundant, beautiful day. Only a few clouds in the sky, very clear. However, windy again. So we may get some interruptions on this microphone here, I don't know. But Monday was like 90 degrees. And today we're down at about 68. So we got over 30-degree difference between Monday at this time and today. So still a beautiful day. I placed myself out here in the sun just so I can get a little more warmth. Whereas Monday I had to place myself under the tree just to keep cool. Well, God is still in charge. God is still in control, and we have to trust that. You know, yesterday I was speaking to you about muscles becoming the leaders of, really the brain, but I mean the body as well. And it was pretty much a continuation of what I was sharing with you last week. How muscles have to take over when the brain is in a state of defeatism, discouragement, depression. But today I think we'd like to talk about how to deal with discouragement. This lesson, of course, applies to really anybody, not just those of you here watching on God's answers for anxiety and depression, because every human being on the planet, and more so those who are ambitious towards goals, you're going to have those days of discouragement. Right? That's not news to anybody. But how do you deal with discouragement? And especially in particular, how do you deal with discouragement with respect to nervous symptoms, anxiety, depression, mental health disorders? You see, because as I've mentioned frequently, in this, let's call it a warfare. In this warfare of battling nervous symptoms, ones that can affect everything from digestion to your breathing, palpitations, and all the garden variety symptoms are the ones that I usually mention. And so your body is in a state of discomfort, and the mind always, the brain I should say, has a tendency to endorse that and follow it. Hence the lesson on making muscles to take the position of leadership. But you know, we all deal with this, and again, especially those of you dealing with nervous symptoms. So you have a day, let's say even longer than that, a week or two or more, and things have been going pretty well, and then all of a sudden, you know, these nervous symptoms come back, and I continually remind you that they do. I'm not sure exactly why. I don't know if anybody is. Experts in the field, I mean. I don't know that anybody is sure exactly why they return. Obviously, there's a part that we could play. For instance, when you're uptight and you're tense, then you become irritable. Then you're prone to irritations. And sometimes the least little thing can just set you off. People around you may not understand obviously the average individual has irritations and they get set off. But unfortunately, for nervous patients and people with nervous symptoms, those irritations and losing your temper, will set off a chain of events, making, as I've noted before, making the symptoms worse, making them last longer. But it really is a very challenging thing to maintain a disciplined life, a disciplined way of thinking, discipline in your muscles, movements, going to work, getting up, doing housework, chores, all these things. For the average person, they simply go about their business with not too much distress the way you do. In your case, you're going to deal with an extra dose of symptoms that are affecting your organs, obviously the thinking. So it's not easy. And then you're apt to become discouraged. Even for those of you, and I know there are a few of you out there who are really practicing and you're really putting these lessons to work, and you're giving it everything that you have, and yet all of a sudden, after all that work, after all that effort, after everything that you did or are doing, the symptoms return anyway. Now, let me just mention again, this is part of that mystery of exactly why do they return. I don't know. I just know that they do. And perhaps one day someone will figure it out and have it all outlined. I doubt it. This life that we live here on earth is filled with vicissitudes, changes, like the weather. We even have that expression, right? He changes like the weather. She changes like the weather. Well, this week was a good example of that. I mean, it's been sunny for months. That's the good news. But, you go from 90 degrees to 68 degrees with the same type of a breeze. It's actually, believe it or not, I'm sitting directly in the sun here. It's a little bit chilly. So, it's a vicissitude. It just changes, especially, when they come suddenly. Many of us are not apt to take it so well, but more so those who deal with nervous symptoms. You can notice, well, maybe you won't notice, but I mean, in yourself, if you took the time, you'll notice that you're not taking it the same way others take it. In other words, you take it more seriously, and you're more irritable, and you're more prone to be losing your temper or complaining, or both. So it can lead to, in the final analysis, it can lead to a spirit of discouragement. So that's what I want to address with you. How do you deal with this discouragement? Well, again, everybody has it. Everybody on the planet has it, and more so those who are very goal-oriented and giving it everything they have. They're going to deal more with discouragement than the average individual who has some, modest goals. As they say, comme ci, comme ça. It works out, it don't work out. There is something to be said about being phlegmatic. Phlegmatic means you're kind of like easygoing. It rains, it's sunny, you don't care. I don't know that there's too many of you watching this broadcast that are that way, but you can find yourself sometimes envying those who are. They're like, But, and I'll say us, for those of us who are very goal-driven, motivated people. And I'll add to that, when you sign on to overcome these symptoms that have tormented you, then you become a very focused, goal-oriented person. In that case, it's just one goal, is to get well. But you're still in that category. Now you have not only an obstacle, but on any given day you may have a major obstacle to your goal. And I'll just keep it confined to our topic. So you have a serious goal coupled with the desire to be free from your symptoms. You're practicing, you're doing the work, and then all of a sudden these symptoms return, and they may return in a very strong fashion. And then you get hit with discouragement. You say to yourself, why am I even bothering? And why go through all this? That's not working. And you know how that goes, right? You know how that whole mindset goes. The worst thing, first of all, that you could ever do is give up. So let's start with that. Dealing with discouragement. Number one, never quit. I remember very distinctly, I had a friend at the local gym where I work out. He was a retired brigadier general. We became very good friends. And obviously having commanded men for so many decades in combat, well, frequently in combat, as well as teaching at the the academy and a few other things. We would talk sometimes, and I was often a source of encouragement for him on some of the issues that he was dealing with at that stage of his life. But what I didn't expect is there was times when he was teaching me, which I definitely appreciated. And I remember one day, I was discouraged, or I had a spirit of discouragement, that feeling of discouragement. And as I was speaking with him, he quoted to me a poem that I had heard many years ago. I was familiar with it. And the poem has a theme in it: rest if you must, but don't you quit. Now, him saying that to me, well, it caused me to go and look up the entire poem. And it reminded me of what I had learned many years ago from that very poem. Take a rest, take a break, but don't quit. Never, ever quit. I think that I've used it on this broadcast. It's an unofficial statement of the United States Marine Corps, which I think was made popular by Clint Eastwood's movie Heartbreak Ridge. I've never actually seen the movie, but that's my understanding, that this unofficial creed of the Marine Corps, which is in Latin, it's improviso apto quod victum. Improviso apto quod victum. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. So we don't want to quit. You don't want to quit. If you quit, you're definitely going to lose. No question about that. Depression, you'll fall back into a depression. Anxiety and panic attacks, it'll take advantage of you, and it'll get worse. You definitely don't want to quit. But there are some times when you just got to back off a little bit and not quit, not stop, but just ease up a little bit. This is what I found very helpful for me. Yesterday, I had a great night's sleep last night. I really did. Slept really well, but for some odd reason, when I get up in the morning, it wasn't so pleasant. I had little things going on. At my age, you always have little things going on. And this morning, today, those little things was a kind of a little bit worse. And in my mind, I made it a big thing. And all of a sudden, I found myself getting frustrated, and irritated, because you put all this effort into, getting well and staying healthy, and, well, it just doesn't always work out the way we want it to. So, what I've learned to do over the years is, okay, I may have to slow my pace a little bit, but don't stop. Now, I'm not tempted to quit, but those temptations sometimes can be strong, especially, and I'll say it this way, especially if you are prone to blame, this, that, and the other thing. When the truth of it is that most of the, not so much the problems that we have, but the way we handle them, well, that's on us. Now, I told you before, in my position as a pastor, as a father, a grandfather, a husband, I got a lot of responsibilities. And I'm being truthful with you. I'm not always all that enthused about going through a day. When I think about what may be facing me on any one of those levels, there's days what it goes down to, with me at least, what it gets down to is I'm just tired. But again, I've learned to, all right, if I have to slow down, which for me is a rest, I would prefer this year, not getting a vacation, I would prefer to be away like we usually are, where I could really rest. But that's not going to happen. So, improvise. I've had to improvise. And then you adapt to that improvisation. And then with that, you overcome your situation. So we don't quit. We improvise. At least for the moment. We adapt to that improvisation, and then we overcome. Now, let me just say this to you to be of a help to you. Well, I've always been a 100% totally involved person in whatever I've done. I've told you that before. And there's a lot of good to that, but it has its drawbacks too. Number one, some things don't require 100% effort. But when they do, and when you're involved and it's not working out, for a person like me, it's very difficult to back off and slow down. And you may find the same thing, that is happening to you. Is that, you want these symptoms to go away, and you want this thing just to be finished, and you want this thing just to be done, which is natural. And you're giving it all your effort, and you're giving it all that you have. And as life is for everybody, at the moment it's just not working out all that well. Well, rest, slow down, take it easy, but you don't quit. In your case, with these symptoms, whether it's depression, anxiety, mental health diagnosis, whatever it is, quitting would be not good. Not good. So you got to kind of take the pressure off yourself. Again, you may be one of those people who are oriented to put more pressure on yourself than other people do. I can tell you, I was more of a problem to myself than other people were, because it was coming from an internal drive. And I would often put more pressure on myself than was warranted or necessary. Well, then you start to think about, if you're aware of it, if I'm putting this pressure on myself, then I'm the only one that can fix it. All right, that's when we begin to back off a little bit, improvise, adapt to the improvisation, and then overcome. So number one, in dealing with discouragement, we never quit. Never, ever quit. Number two, and I believe it was the Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius who said that attitude is more important than facts. I believe it was him. Attitude is more important than facts. In other words, for you, what is more important than the condition that you have is your mindset towards it. I've already told you that I was an amateur fighter, and I reminded you, or rather I shared with you, that they had great things planned for me and so on. And to use that illustration of boxing, I'm starting to feel like I'm on the Weather Channel here. You know, you can lose a round and still win the fight. Let's say it's a 12 round or 15 round fight when you're on the pro level. You're not going to win every round. I mean, who does? It's usually a lopsided case as far as the matchup. If the fighters are fairly even, you know, even if they're like this, well, if it's like this, you're not going to win every round. But in the end, you can still win the fight. Okay, so you get the idea. We in life go through many battles. You with the condition that you have, whatever it's labeled, whatever the diagnosis is, you are going to have many, many battles before the war is won. And when you lose one battle, whether it's an anxiety attack that got a hold of you and got away from you, I remember a woman who was doing very, very well with her progress in this area, and well, in her case, it was a mental health disorder. And then, you know, one day she just didn't get the victory, wound up at the emergency room in a panic, and on and on. So I had a chance to talk to her, and I said, okay, so that's done. Nobody does this perfectly. Nobody practices perfectly in anything. So you just let it go, shake it off, and move on. And that's exactly what she did. You know, that night, it was a pretty rough night for her. I could say that she definitely lost that battle. But you know what? She won the war. In her case, in her situation, she won the war. Absolutely. So, second thing is, in dealing with discouragement, realize that you're going to fight many, many battles. It's not going to be a one-day deal. It's not going to be a one-year deal. For most of you, it's going to be a lifelong battle. And you're going to have those occasions, symptoms creep up on you, all of a sudden you're back, the attack is really bad, and you may lose that battle. That's where the discouragement comes in. But if you don't quit, and if you simply just stick with the program, hang in there, ease off a little bit, take some of the pressure off yourself, you'll find that in the end, as long as you stay diligent, and your attitude, which I wanted to mention that, your attitude is one of, I will beat this. I will definitely beat this. I'm going to beat it. You're going to. There's an old saying that they can because they think they can. Well, I wouldn't necessarily endorse that statement 100%, but there is something to it. People who have a strong, resolute will, I've been talking to you about resoluteness, they have a tendency to overcome. Fortune favors the bold. It's not something that just happens to you, it's just something you pursue. But in the course of pursuing a goal, in this case mental health, you're going to have battles with discouragement. And it's very important that you understand that battles can be lost without losing the war. So keep this in mind. Keep these things in mind in dealing with discouragement, that nobody does this perfectly. The greatest people in the world who have accomplished some of the greatest things in history dealt with discouragement, and many of them dealt with it frequently. But why they are well-known people for their inventions, their compositions, music, heroes in war, and all of that, is because they never quit. We don't quit. we don't give up. And secondly, we can lose a battle, but still be intent on winning the war. So let me pray for you. Father, I pray for my friends that are watching. Give them the victory. If they've lost a battle this week or last week or maybe today, show them that they can still win the war. Help them not to quit. Give them peace, give them serenity, I pray. In Jesus' name. Amen. Hey, by the way, I asked you to pray, and by not quitting, I had that Saturday video that I did. Couldn't get it uploaded to YouTube. Went home that afternoon and went right up. I had a real problem with that, getting it uploaded to YouTube. And I guess it's a good example of the power of God through prayer and a resolute will that says, I'm not giving up on this. I'm going to get the victory. Small thing, but remind you to pray for me, please, as I will pray for you, and I do pray for you. If you want to stick with me on these teachings, subscribe, please, to the channel, and hit the notification button as well. All right, well, Lord willing that we don't get some kind of a super storm here, which I don't think that we are. I'll be with you here again tomorrow. All right? So thanks for being with me. And remember, never quit. Never give in. Never give up. God bless. See you tomorrow.